Right, this is going to be great, I think. This is a bottle that I didn't know existed and isn't really a super sought after one, but it's one of those whiskies you look at the label and you think, yep, that ticks all the boxes. So this is a Springbank, which is obviously a good start. 27 years old, bottled at 49.1% by James MacArthur and Co. So this is an independent bottling. Springbank, I'm sure you know inside out. Are you able to give sort of an overview of the distillery and the brand to those who aren't as aware of it?
Aye, so Campbelltown on the west coast of Scotland, very small town, but one of the most sort of famous whiskey producing areas, and Springbank's, definitely the best known name from the town. It's, I don't want to use the word fetishized, but people absolutely love
it. You said it now, Kieran.
It's out there. Particularly older bottles, even if they've got quite a young age statement on them, if they're from the 70s, 80s, maybe even further back, they'll go for good money second-hand auctions, and that's people opening them and enjoying them as well, not just sitting on a shelf.
Yeah, it's always, it's quite for me, it's very typical of Campbelltown whiskies in that they are quite kind of briny and quite difficult and full of character. And I think there's not too many people who are new to whiskey who love Campbelltown straight away. It is quite an acquired taste in the same way as your smoky Islay malts.
Yeah, it's definitely not the most accessible of styles. But
no, I think did it take you a while to get into Springbank, or did you sort of take a shine to it quite early?
I think because when I got into whiskey, I immediately took a liking to your big peaty Islay whiskies. It was maybe a bit easier for me to appreciate Springbank. It's actually, for me, I go the other way. I find it harder to appreciate the softer, subtler whiskies. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Springbank.
Sure. So this one here, as I say, was bottled by a company called James MacArthur. So we assume they bought a cask of Springbank at some point and they bottled it in celebration of 500 years of Scotch whisky in 1994. That's obviously referencing the Friar John Core story in 1494 about 8 balls of malt, which is the first recorded reference to whiskey in some form, which is fairly interesting if you're into that sort of thing. But we are interested in the whiskey. This is a Springbank. It's 27 years old. What do you sort of expect of a Springbank of this age?
Oh, well, to be honest, I've not tried one at this kind of age. Most of the ones I've had have been sort of 12, 15, 18 kind of mark, and you hit the nail on the head earlier. Oily, briny, often sort of characterised by like a salinity. There can be sweetness that come through depending on the casks that they've used, obviously, but they're the big hallmarks. Yeah,
it's kind of a very distinctive taste. I think it's hard to describe it in a way that sounds appealing to those who are new to Campbelltown whiskey. So I was like, briny, like hot dog water. Like, it really puts people off.
But like canned fish or something. It's not the most appealing thing in the world.
Definitely not. But I think it's just full of flavour. It's very quirky as well. You know, the production facilities at the distillery, how do you describe it? It's quite sort of old-fashioned and probably inefficient and stuff. But that's what people love. They love whiskey the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, I think the word sort of traditional gets thrown about. You know, what's a nice sort of traditional whiskey? And I think Springbank kind of hits that. Even the whiskey they're producing today, as you said, old-fashioned, traditional.
Yeah. So very, very excited to try this. Let's crack open and see if it lives up to the hype that we've created just now for it. Let's see.
Yeah, there's lofty expectations already. So, I don't know too much about James MacArthur as a bottler.
Yeah, they no longer exist. I think the company ceased trading maybe 2015, I'm guessing. But they've produced some sort of legendary whiskies in the past. They did some, a couple of Port Ellens, which were very, very sought after. Kind of 80s and 90s, they churned out some great stuff. But indie bottling is always a bit of a gamble. Anything single cask or small batch, you're never going to be sure how it's going to fit in with the core style of a distillery. But let's give this a try and see how we get on.
As I say, even just when you unpop the cork there's already a delightful aroma sort of coming up.
I know.
I wasn't really listening to what you were saying about the bottler there.
Oh, just say it again.
This actually smells amazing. I can't wait to give it a try.
That is quite a nose, actually, isn't it? That is so like vibrant. I think how would you? It kind of reminds me of like 1960s Bowmores that have that like tropical element to it because there is a real sweetness to it.
Yeah, there is like that sort of, you say tropical, but like sort of, for me it smells more like tropical flavored like sweets rather than the actual fresh fruit itself. Yeah,
really
remarkably sweet.
Really quite interesting. Are you picking up much of that kind of farmyard funk you often get with Campbelltown whiskies?
Power of suggestion, maybe,
I know,
maybe a wee bit, maybe a bit of like a sort of
that.
cereally, grainy kind of note, but for me, it's all about that sort of synthetic fruitiness, which you say synthetic, it sounds like a negative. It's very appealing for me.
Yeah, no, I think it smells great. It definitely doesn't smell like any Springbank I've had before, so we'll give us a try. Cheers.
Cheers. Nice and oily in terms of mouthfeel.
Yeah, it has got a nice, texture to it. It does taste a little bit hot, I think. Because this is what, 49.1. So it's not, it's not super, super strong.
Yeah.
But I feel like it could benefit from a little touch of water, I think. Are you managing okay with it, or do you think it's...
Yeah, I think that first sip I took there, I definitely got it, that sort of alcohol prickle across the palate. But the sweetness was still coming through. Okay. It wasn't dominating for me.
Yeah.
It was a sort of nice balance between the two.
Yeah, I think it has got a slightly sort of rugged feel to it. And I think that is quite typical of Campbelltown whiskies.
Yeah.
I think with a whiskey of this age, I was maybe expecting it to be a little bit more mellow and subdued, but it is still quite an oily beast.
Yeah, so there's a fair bit of character going on, isn't there?
Yeah, I think I might actually, I don't usually add a huge amount of water, but I might give a little drop. Where's my straw? I hate the straw. Let's see, do a little drop in here.
I'll do the same just for the sake of, in the name of science.
Absolutely.
Has that changed much for you at all?
It's kind of, calmed it down a little bit. I think the nose is definitely less vibrant with a few drops of water. Give it another try.
Yeah, I'd sort of echo what you're saying. I wouldn't go as far as saying it's killed the nose, but it's a bit less attractive.
Yeah, with the water, the sweetness totally disappears on the palate, I think. It goes a bit kind of bitter and rubbery, actually, with a touch of water. Yeah, definitely better without. Yeah, again, I regret adding water. Waste of time, never do it. But it's a good, it's a good dram. I think it's one of those whiskies where you've had a dram once you've had it. It really demands your attention. It's not particularly, I don't know, I was going to say it's quite imbalanced a little bit. I think it just feels quite difficult to me.
Yeah, I think when I added a bit of water there, some of the hallmarks we mentioned for Springbank came through. That sweetness for me has been replaced by that briny, kind of salty character. Okay. So it's maybe a bit closer to what I was expecting when I added water, but that initial nose for me was a 10 out of 10 in terms of what I got there. And it's maybe not lived quite up to that first impression.
Yeah, I'm a bit, my expectations were high after nosing it. I'm a little bit disappointed with how it is on the palate. Finish, I feel, is fairly unremarkable too. I think, Springbank's almost a victim of its own success. I feel like any particularly older Springbank you try, your expectations are always so high. On this occasion, it's fallen a little bit flat for me. I think particularly given the price, a 27-year-old rare Springbank is going to be high hundreds, if not over £1,000.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to try this up against a sort of cast strength 27-year-old from the modern production. Just, out of interest to see how it compares if the modern stuff still, if that has like a really delightfully fruity nose that kind of goes off with when you add water. But it's always interesting to try a whiskey of this age.
I suppose it's 27 years old and bottled 1994, so it's mid-late 60s distill it,
Yeah.
which is amazing, which is great to try this stuff. And I think it shows why people keeping and collecting whiskey is a good thing. Because if everybody just drank everything, we wouldn't have the chance to try this. So even though it's a bit disappointing and it's not the best dram I've had today, it's a great opportunity to try. So cheers.
Cheers. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Bevvy content. We want to hear what you think, your best whiskey experiences, the whiskies you want to try. It's a really exciting journey we're on, so make sure to join us. Download the Bevvy app on Google Play and App Store to keep track of your whiskey journey, connect with your whiskey friends, keep track of your favourites, anything you could ever want to do with whiskey, all in one place. It's the definitive whiskey companion.